Good morning. If you don't feel welcomed and if you're not awake, you're dead. All right. Welcome to the Race and Conference. My name is John Wallace. I serve as Vice Provost for Faculty Diversity and Development, and we are thrilled to have you here with us this morning. Put your hands together for yourselves. So we're looking forward to a fantastic day today. Real quick, pressing issues. The women's room is that way. The men's room is that way. All right. And we also have room 531 as a space if you need to just go handle a private meeting or need a little quiet or whatever over the course of the day. All right. So again, thank you so much for being here. We're thrilled. We have an action-packed day planned for you. You see people with these shirts on, it says race and, they should be able to help you. Except me, I'm just for show. If anybody else with the shirt, they should be able to provide assistance. All right. Before we kick off the day, we're thrilled that we have a welcome from our new chancellor. She sends her greetings and her apologies. The Board of Trustees meeting is this morning, and so we did not expect her to be here because those are her bosses. So we'll have a welcome for her, and then we'll kick off.
Good morning, and welcome to the second annual Race and Conference. My name is Joan Gable. I'm very honored to be your new chancellor here at the University of Pittsburgh, and very honored to be a part of your welcome to this conference. And I hate that I can't be with you in person. We actually have our Board of Trustees meetings today. It is literally the only thing that would keep me from being with you today for this important conversation, set of presentations, and critical work to the identity and mission of the University of Pittsburgh. I want to congratulate you and thank you for taking the time to attend today, for sharing your insights, for raising your voice, for having an impact on everything that we're doing at the institution, but in particular and with focus today on our efforts to excavate causes of disparities and mitigate their impact, if not eradicate them completely. I am thrilled that we're doing this crucial work. I'm really glad to know that this is becoming a sustainable and ongoing conference so that we can celebrate and think and work together today, but also every day throughout the lifeblood and work of the institution in order to ensure that we're fulfilling our mission. I want to thank all the organizers. Putting something like this together is an incredible task, but I'll specifically call out the Office of the Provost, the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and the Center for Race and Social Problems, and of course, Vice Provost John Wallace for everything that is and goes into an event like today's event in order to ensure that we have the opportunity that we have today. I want to thank our performers. I want to thank the people who are serving the food and making sure that we have a safe and robust space for us to have these conversations, to be able to express these voices, and to be able to do this work. And I want to thank the team behind the Mama Docs documentary that you're going to see. It's an incredible, powerful moment and a critical opportunity for us to look at how we all get better. But mostly I want to thank all of you for offering me such a warm welcome, for giving me the opportunity to be with you today, even in this limited way, for your advocacy, for the way in which you teach, the way in which you engage, the way in which you research. I really look forward to hearing about what comes of your conversations today and how we can all work together to make this the very best university that I know we all want for it to be. So enjoy the conference, forge ahead, and hail to Pitt. Thanks again.
Everybody got full? We want everybody, you good on the stomach? Everybody's good? All right. So in 2020, when George Floyd was killed, murdered by the police, our nation changed and we reacted and we were shaken. And I think in part because everyone was home and glued to our televisions, and people who perhaps would not have even moved, the ability to wear masks, to be out in the street and to express their concern, their outrage. And so it felt like our country was changing. Even something as mundane as petroleum jelly, I'm not using the product name. So in 2020, what do we see? Equitable skincare for all. Right, even down to our skincare. And for those of us who know this product from literally from top to bottom, right, from the hair to anybody. Be honest. Anybody ever shine your shoes? top to bottom, cracked heels, ashy elbow, the whole 9 yards, right? Is ashy really a word? But anyway, we know the product. But we fast forward to 2023. Did anybody notice what is happening? But you see, we were forewarned. We were told up front, limited edition. And so many of us, unfortunately, perhaps not the people in this room, but outside of this room and for so much of our country, the moment is past. During the crisis, we see that the number one C-suite job in terms of its growth was Chief Diversity Officers. 169% increase in those positions. Again, we fast forward. Of the top positions, the only one to lose ground is Chief Diversity Officer. We saw, particularly in the tech space, but more generally, the loss of these jobs. And so for folks experiencing attrition, a third of folks in the diversity space were those who lost employment. And then, of course, there's the Supreme Court ruling. And so the backlash to what felt like change is a reality with which we deal. So question, when we think about North Carolina, for example, they had race-conscious admissions from its founding in 1795. Meaning if you were black, 0% and 0 people were admitted to the University of North Carolina. So would you say that was a race-conscious policy? For 156 years, race-conscious admissions dominated the University of North Carolina system. Between 1951 and today, we find that roughly 8% of the student body is black, although 22% of the state is African American or black. And we have the end of affirmative action. Now, I'm not especially bright, but it would seem to me if we were interested in the issue of equitable race-conscious admissions, you would simply add 156 years to the 156 years which people were denied because they were black. You add 156, so 2107 would have been the logical end of race-conscious admission. And notice we went from 0%, no people admitted, or 100% of people denied because of their race, and we find ourselves having these conversations because 8% admitted are black. And then let's not forget Harvard, where 43% of the white admits today are affirmatively admitted because they had a family member who was a graduate of the school, because of their athletics. We're not talking about football and basketball here, folks. We're talking about fencing, water polo, etc. And so it's interesting the conversations that we have, and again, that this issue of race has fallen off of many people's radar. Study talking about the city in which we live, and even though Pittsburgh is one of the best places if you're going to live to be 100 for white Americans, that's not the case for African Americans in the city of Pittsburgh. Interestingly, the data tell us in counties where there are more black doctors, black people live longer. And so how do we tie that to this issue of where we are with regard to race-conscious admissions in college, university, graduate school, medical school? In a city like ours, where we have massive racial disparities in health and health outcomes, this will have even greater impact into the future. This afternoon, we're going to have a powerful time together when we review the Mama Doc's video. And so this paradox, the data that you see in front of you, is in many reasons why we undertook to do the documentary. How is it the message that we give to little black girls and little black boys, that if you go to school, get an education, that your life will be better? But these data tell us that for African American women, the more highly educated you are, the more likely you are to experience an adverse birth outcome. And the question became, how can that be? And so that became the driver. The data is important. I'm a sociologist by training. I'm a quantoid. But it's the voices of real women in this room who we know that will talk about and understand the state of our nation and why the issue of race still matters, both here in Pittsburgh and beyond. Related to that issue, the data tell us that where there are black doctors, black children, high-risk births are more likely to survive. And so this is the conversation today. The work that we do through our office and in partnership with the health sciences, one piece of it is the race and social determinants of equity, health, and well-being cluster and retention hire. So we've brought so far 57 amazing scholars from around the country who do work on the issues of race and racial disparities. And so even though race may have fallen off the radar other places, I'm proud to say that here at the University of Pittsburgh, race still matters. We still will do the work. We continue to have adversity, and that's just part of life. But our ancestors, I always say personally, my great-grandfather, my grandfather's father was enslaved. And so for me to be here with this opportunity, just another set of obstacles. It is what it is, but the work will continue because that's who we are. That's who all of us are. If you're in this room, you've committed to this work. And so we're excited today to be with you, to have the opportunity to elevate, celebrate, acknowledge, and recommit to doing the work to make this a better place for all of us. And of course, if you want to holler at me, catch me on LinkedIn. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to introduce, to my knowledge, the only African American woman at the University of Pittsburgh who's both a full professor and holds an endowed chair, has more letters and more stuff behind her name, more degrees than a thermometer. Now, my eyes are not as young as they used to be, so I'm going to put this up to my face. I'll read some of this, but then I'll talk. Dr. Kyaien O, Ph.D., LSW, MPH, 2 bachelor's degrees, blah, yada, yada. Full professor, endowed chair at the University of Pittsburgh. She holds the Donald Henderson Chair. She's a professor in the School of Social Work, where she is the director of the Center on Race and Social Problems. Dr. Connor's research investigates factors that influence disparities in health and mental health services utilization and treatment outcomes for racial and ethnic minorities. She focuses on development and evaluation of culturally meaningful approaches to improving behavioral health for African Americans. She received over $5 million in funding for her research on behavioral health. Can I get a loan? Including a current PCORI-funded comparative effectiveness trial evaluating community-based intervention to mitigate hospital readmissions post-discharge for African American and Latinx patients with chronic disease. She's important, she's famous, she's won the Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Civic and Community Engagement, Black Faculty Member of the Year from the institution where she came that will not be named. Bottom line, sis is a star, she's important, she's smart, you kind, and you's important. Come on, Kai.
Oh, my goodness. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here this morning with all of you. It is especially exciting for me to have a welcome like that from Vice Provost Wallace, who some of you may know was incredibly instrumental in my career as a doctoral student in social work. I won't tell you all how many years ago. But I am really honored to be here for this second annual Race and Conference. And I know we've already had a welcome, but in true traditional West African form, I would like to do my own welcome to you. But this will require a little bit of engagement. As you know, we know in Africa, we are a village, we are a family, and that requires some give and take, some call and response. So are you guys willing to do a little bit of engagement with me this morning? Yes! All right. So what we're going to be doing, let me make sure my lapel mic is working, perfect, is clapping along and then singing and then maybe a little bit of movement to a rhythm and dance called Funga Alafia. Many of you probably have heard those words. You probably said those words. This is a welcome song, a welcome dance, a welcome rhythm that's saying welcome and we come in peace. So what we're going to do first is listen to the rhythm. And what I want you to listen for is that in West African dancing and drumming, we don't actually use counts like 5, 6, 7, 8. The lead drummer plays what we call a break, which is a unique series of slaps and tones and bass sounds that let us know it's time to start, and it also lets us know it's time to stop so that we're together. So we'll let them start by just briefly playing the rhythm. All right. So now what we're going to do is clap along with this rhythm. And because West African rhythms are complex, different sides of the room are going to be clapping two different things. So on this side, we're going to clap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Clap with me. 1, 2. Perfect. You guys have it. All right. So now what we have to do is start all together. When the drum plays the break, this side calls, this side responds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's how we go. Here we go. And. Okay, a few stragglers, but we got it. We got it. Perfect. Okay, so now we understand the rhythm. Now we're going to learn the song. It's very simple. Just repeat after me. Funga alafia ashe ashe. Funga alafia ashe ashe. That's it. So now we're going to try to sing it. You don't have to be a singer, although I know some people in here are, so if you want to flex, you can go ahead and do that. But it's not about the singing. It's just about the village and us calling and responding to one another. Funga alafia ashe ashe. Funga alafia ashe ashe. Funga alafia, we welcome you. Funga alafia, we welcome you. All right, so some of y'all didn't tell me because it sounded really harmonic in here. That sounded really good. All right, so now what we have to do is clap and sing at the same time. So remember, this side we have our 5 count, this side we have our 2 count, and we sing at the same time. So the first break, we'll start to clap. The second break, we'll start the song. The last break, we end. Here we go. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga Alafia, we welcome you. Bunga Alafia, we welcome you. Woo, that was good. Okay, so here's the last level. We have to do a couple movements. Now, this is not going to be hard. I promise you, it's 3 movements, and it is very, very, very simple. But if you are capable, would you please stand with me? Come on, stand up. Yes. These are going to be very simple movements, I promise. Movement number 1, from our hearts out, we're welcoming. So we're going to march 4 times, and just every time we step, our hands go out. Out, 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 then to the right and to the left. Repeat. Out, 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 to the right and to the left. Beautiful. Y'all got that? That's step number 1. The second step. That was step number 1. The second step, we're giving honor to the heavens 4 times. Up, 2, 3, 4, and to the earth. 2, 3, 4, to the heavens. 2, 3, 4, and to the earth. Beautiful. That was step 2. Our last step with our right hand. 1, 2, 3, clap. Welcome. Welcome. Yes. And that's it. Can we do that? I'm going to do it with you. So again, they're going to play the rhythm, and we're going to do our claps. Then we're going to sing the song. Then we're going to dance the movements together, and then we will close. I know we can do it. I know we can do it. Here we go. This side. Ashe. Bunga Alafia, I welcome you. Bunga Alafia, we welcome you. There we go. And out. Right, left, out. Right. Up and down, heavy, and the crank. Last step, welcome. Oh, let me get a sip of water. Woo. Thank you guys so much. That was really meaningful for me. I hope that our blood is pumping. We're a little more invigorated. And I just also, before y'all run away, can we do a thank you to our drummers? Are you guys still here? Chet, did y'all leave? Oh, I wanted to introduce you. Come back and just wave your hands. We have Brother Anthony Mitchell, who is a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Master drummer from Guinea, West Africa. Ode Labia, Canada. And master drummer from Senegal, West Africa, Shekendong. Secret, that's also my husband, so. All right. Okay, so, I'm excited now. So, I'm here to talk about the importance of teamwork, collaboration, and how those things together can lead us towards innovation to solve complex social problems. Vice Provost Wallace gave me a beautiful introduction and told you about some of my more academic roles, but I wanted to just take a moment to tell you a little bit about who I am in a more holistic way. As you heard, I've been here at the University of Pittsburgh for a very long time. I got all of my degrees here, so the University of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh as a city holds a very special place in my heart. I'm also a social worker by discipline and profession. Yes, social work. I hold very strongly to my professional code of ethics and values and have really dedicated my life to service of others and wanting to improve the lives and the health of the communities where I work. I also would identify myself as a health equity researcher. Most of my work has really studied racial disparities in mental health and physical health treatment, access to care, and doing different kinds of trials, clinical, collaborative effectiveness trials, to look at the impact of varied interventions to reduce those disparities in the communities that I care about. I would also identify myself as a social justice advocate. I think that advocacy is a huge part of the work that we all need to do, and as a social worker, that's a part of my mission, to be the voice for other communities where they may not always have the power or the influence to advocate for themselves. But I'm also a professional West African dancer. Yes, I'm an artist, and I've been dancing professional West African dance for probably as long as I can remember. I was one of the lead dancers for a number of different groups here, and if Orande Sharif is in the room, I danced with Orande for a number of years and actually did Black Nativity in this very building for a number of years, and worked with my teacher and mentor, Mama Kariatu Conte, until just a little over a year ago when she unfortunately passed. But when I received my first major grant from the National Institutes of Health, this was an incredibly exciting time for me. But perhaps just as exciting, if not more so, was when I had the opportunity to be a principal dancer in a major motion picture on the silver screen. Yes. So I was able to be a lead dancer in Coming to America, the sequel. I got to perform for some of my icons, Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, John Amos, Gladys Knight, Morgan Freeman, Salt and Pepper, just to name a few. This was incredibly symbolic for me, perhaps because the West African dancing and drum scene in the original Coming to America is probably one of the most iconic and well-known dance scenes, African dance scenes, in the US, but it's also incredibly culturally inaccurate. Paula Abdul's Hollywood version of what African dance looks like and what African dancers look like. So to be asked to be part of this sequel where I was able to see true representation of culture, where people from African countries could see their dress, their movements, their rhythms truly and authentically represented on the big screen, was really exciting for me. So this was incredibly important. I also had a chance to work with Auntie Ruthie, who did the attire, what some people might call costuming, for this movie and also for all of the Black Panther movies. So what you might be wondering is why I am talking about this at a talk about collaboration, and no, this is not just like a shameless plug for me to tell you about this cool thing I got to do, but because I really want to have a transparent moment with this group. For a very long time, I hid my artistic self. For a very long time, none of my colleagues, my administrators, leaders at my former institution had any idea about any of the artistic work that I was doing outside of the academy. I was worried. I was worried that people wouldn't take me seriously as an academic if they knew that I was an artist. I was concerned that people would see this as a weakness or judge my intellect. And that was heightened by the way that I look, being a young African-American woman, and wondering if that might impact higher leadership's perception of what I was able to accomplish and do. So this huge part of my life remained hidden until I began to realize that this part of my life was actually a strength. That this hiding was not helping me. It was keeping me from being connected to my colleagues, many of whom had artistic talents of their own that they too were kind of hiding. I I realized that what I thought might be a weakness would actually become to be one of my strengths, but I needed to recognize that within myself so that others would perceive it as such. So I talk about this because the reality is that collaboration starts with you. There may not be an I in team, but there is a me. So we have to think about what is it that's unique about you? What are you bringing of yourself to the team? And as I said, for a very long time, I was holding a lot of myself back from my colleagues until I realized that there was some strength in that. I'm a cultural artist. I'm connected to my history and my ancestry. I'm connected to a culture that may have been stolen from me, but I'm being intentional about reclaiming that, and that gives me power. And it also gives me connection to a community that sees me as a member of that community and not just someone that's going into it to take data from them. I'm an artist, and art is by its very nature innovative. So I learned that I could use the creativity that I bring to the dance floor to a research proposal. The way that I orchestrate or choreograph a dance routine, I could use that to pull together a really unique paper or bring together a really great group of people to do science. I'm a performer, and I could use those skills to help me gain my confidence, being able to speak in front of large groups of people. And art is also vulnerable. And as scientists, we too have to learn to be vulnerable. And that's something that I'm still working on now and that we can begin to work on together. So I wanted to talk before about bringing people together to collaborate as a team about the importance of collaborating with yourself, that within self collaboration, bringing together all those unique and different aspects of who you are and what make you you and what makes you special. Bringing all of those unique identities, skill sets, talents, and abilities. When we hide those critical aspects of ourself, it hinders us from fully connecting with those around us, and it prevents us from being able to fully integrate those unique skill sets that can be relevant in an academic environment. We also have to recognize some of our own strengths and weaknesses. No one can be expert at everything, but some of us have a hard time being able to have that insight to recognize areas where we may need help. That doesn't work in a team environment. We have to be able to build teams where there are complementary skill sets, and in order to do that, we have to be able to acknowledge where we are good and other places where we may need some help. We also have to be aware of our own biases and assumptions, and in a team environment, that's not just about, differences in bias with regard to diversity, but also differences with regard to how we interact, how we communicate with one another. Not all of us communicate the same way. I tend to be a talker, so when there's silence in a room, I want to fill that space. Others are more observational. They sit back, they're listening, and maybe they take notes and send that to the group later on. Learning about how we can work better together and what those differences are can help make us stronger teams. Again, working on our ability to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a key aspect of collaboration. How many people in this room have been nervous or intimidated to stand up in front of a room to give a talk? Yeah. And how many people in this room have had an idea that they thought was good, but they were too nervous or to share it with a group of people because it wasn't fully developed and they weren't sure about if it was going to be judged? How many of us have had a particularly scathing review from an external funder or from a journal that we were trying to get a paper from? Yes, everybody. And maybe had second thoughts about sharing that with others around us because we thought it might reflect negatively upon us. I saw everyone's hand go up in this room. We've all been there, right? This is a part of science. This is a part of working together, but we are often taught to hide our weaknesses and showcase only our strengths. But that doesn't work in a team environment. We have to be willing to offer up an idea that might not yet be fully articulated, but it could spark something in someone else that then leads to synergistic collaborations where we work together to pull that idea together to become something really exciting and amazing, moving things forward. We also have to be willing to be self-critical because peer critique is necessary. Wouldn't we rather have our colleagues tear apart our work before it gets sent out and torn apart by somebody at NIH? It's important to create a culture where we can share those critiques with each other, where we can be honest, about where there may be some limitations in our work so that we can build teams together that are going to produce great science. And this is a skill that requires practice. Again, collaboration is actually something that we sort of talk about as if everyone should know how to do it, but who of us have ever taken like training on how to do collaboration? Our graduate studies, when we're training in higher education, are often the place where we're learning how to conduct science. But when we think about it, master's theses, dissertations, these tend to be sort of single investigator-driven endeavors. And then we push these folks out and then we say, collaborate with a team. Where did they learn how to do that? Collaboration honestly doesn't come natural to everyone. It is something that we have to practice. It is something that we have to learn. So I just want to highlight a few of the things that I've learned over the course of my time in training and some things that I have found have been key about collaboration. So we're going to talk about team building and then working towards collaboration, because the truth is having a team does not equate to collaboration. Really personal example, my 8-year-old son is now on a soccer team, and so they're a team, but they're not collaborating very well. They haven't won their last few games. There's a few kids that never want to pass the ball. There's a few others that think the grass is a lot more exciting than what's happening on the field. They're not working well together, but they are a team, right? So there is a science to working towards effective collaborations, but of course you have to have a team first. And there are a lot of different kinds of teams, and we can think about them as sort of variations on a continuum with different levels of integration and interaction. A lot of us were trained more on this left-hand side, single investigator-initiated research. A lot of us, this is how we were taught how to do research. And now many of us are moving more towards the middle, but this sometimes still involves having full proposals sent to you that have already been written, and then you're asked to just jump onto a paper or jump onto a proposal, and you didn't have any role in the conceptualization of that idea from the beginning. And thus, are you really fully engaged in the process? Do you feel like your voice matters if you don't fully agree with the methodology? We're really now moving to these more integrated research teams, the necessity of these integrated research teams to really have high-performing work. Where teams are working together from inception, where everyone at the table has a voice, where we're recognizing where there are gaps and filling that with expertise, and everyone is mutually responsible for the failures and the success of that work. We also have to think about who needs to be at the table. And again, we talked about recognizing our own strengths and weaknesses so we can find folks with complementary skill sets. But what are some other people that should be at our team table? Thinking about community partners as co-investigators instead of just partners or collaborators in the field. And then really building in mentorship and training for those community partners so that they can be working on their own science in their communities too. We can be thinking about disciplines that we might normally not interact with, right? A lot of us are doing research that has policy implications, but how many of us are reaching out to political scientists to ask them to be a part of our research teams so that they can really think about the policy implications of the work that we're doing and how our work might actually move towards policy development? I know we have hello, Dr. Shalom. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to be representing for you, sis, because a lot of us are doing work in communities where having someone with specialty in linguistics training would be really beneficial to help us really think through how we're writing out our informed consent documents and think through our marketing and communication strategies and think through our intervention guides to make sure that we're assessing and getting at the right things. A lot of the intervention work that we do has economics implications. Maybe we should be adding in some cost-benefit work to some of the work that we're doing so that we can see that our interventions are going to be able to be sustained. And then in particular for this room, we really need to be creating pipelines for the people that are coming after us. Does it make sense to be giving less established researchers PI or co-PI roles on some of our grants so that we can ensure that we are helping the next generation of researchers and scholars to become independent researchers, and that just pushes all of our work forward in the end. Once we have a great team pulled together, we also have to be intentional about working on the team dynamics before we start working on the goal. Healthy, functioning teams are critical, and it's not just about the science, it's about the interpersonal dynamics too. So we have to spend time creating a collegial and non-threatening environment within our teams, openly recognizing the strengths of our members, doing check-ins that aren't just about the work. How was your weekend? How are you doing? How is your family? Building real relationships, because that builds trust and rapport, and having great rapport is a key element of having a functional and effective team. We have to develop processes for bringing forward issues or challenges, because they will arise. We need to make sure we have a process for joint decision making so that everyone at the table feels like their voice matters. And they feel that way because it actually does matter. And schedule time for assessments and feedback. Once we've worked on the dynamics, then we can be thinking about the goals. What are we trying to do as a team? It's important that we're defining that clearly, the goals and objectives of the team, but also that every member of the team is clear about what their role is, what their responsibility is, what the expectations are. That way we can all hold each other accountable. Shared vision is really important. And we also shouldn't be afraid to revisit that vision to make sure that it's still what we want it to be. We want to communicate effectively and frequently. Of course, embracing diversity and creativity, because we know that it's through diversity in teams and collaboration that we're going to see innovation in science. We also have to develop conflict management skills, because working on groups can create challenges. And that's also something that we have to learn and practice. How do we use our own interpersonal skills to decrease how significant a problem can be before it grows to something that can then impact the whole group? And then letting go of our ego. I know everyone in this room knows a scientist that has a really big ego. And that may be some folks in this room, or maybe we can be thinking about ourselves, but having an ego in science doesn't work. We have to be willing to be self-critical, and we have to create the space for our colleagues to be willing to be critical of you and of themselves as well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and I know my time is running short already, but this was a group of folks that sort of looked at and researched systematically what was consistent in high-performing research teams. And what I thought was interesting about this is they were looking at the different characteristics and engagements that they were talking about, sort of the characteristics of team members, but it wasn't just about the people who were at that table, right? It was the interpersonal skills that they were witnessing, the ability to have social sensitivity, the emotional engagement that then impacted how the team functioned and how the team communicated. And these key pieces were critical in creating effective research that led to the goals that the group was visioning for themselves. A couple other things that I want to mention, because these are things that I've experienced myself. It's important for you to be strategic. One of the great things about Pitt is that there are a lot of opportunities for collaboration, but if you overcommit yourself, you're never going to be able to fully engage on all the different teams. But the other thing that might be critically important for scholars in this room is that you be strategic about the collaborative teams that you join, because there are researchers who are going to see you and want you to be on their project so that they can gain access to the community that you've spent years building trust and rapport with. There are researchers that recognize when they sent their grant to NIH and someone said, hey, you're doing health disparity work, but you don't have any diversity on your team, that they needed to come back and find some people to fill those spots on their protocol, or find that diversity expert. But then you're filling a spot, but do you really have a voice on that team? Does your opinion matter? Sometimes, but you have to think critically about that. Be strategic. Sometimes for junior faculty, because they're trying to gain tenure, they want to secure their spot, it can be really compelling to say yes to everything that comes our way. But as senior researchers and scholars in the room, we have to wrap our arms around our junior scholars and provide them with that support, mentorship, and guidance so that they are aligning themselves with projects that are going to be beneficial for them and not just beneficial for the senior level researchers who invited them onto their teams. We also have to work to encourage intellectual disagreement. Sometimes we can be so kind to one another that we don't want to hurt someone's feelings and tell them that something that they're putting out there might not be that great. Again, we want to encourage folks. I tell people, rip this apart. I'd rather you rip it apart than someone else rip it apart. Tell me what someone else is going to have a problem with so that we can solve that problem now before it goes out into the world. And assess your collaboration. As a clinician, this is kind of commonplace for me. At the end of every therapy session, I spend 5 to 10 minutes taking time with my client to say, how is therapy going? Is this working for you? Are we achieving our outcomes? Do we need to revisit our treatment plan? We can do the same thing in collaborations. How is this working? Are we reaching the goals that we said that we were going to reach? And if not, let's go back to the table and figure out why and how we can do that better. Because we know that strong collaborations lead to innovation, and we also know that diversity is critical to innovation. And when I talk about diversity, this is my last point here before I make a couple last connections, we're not just talking about identity diversity, but also the importance of functional diversity. Having people around the team at different career stages who come from different life experiences, have different perspectives, look at problems and solve problems in different ways, different disciplines. Having that kind of diversity is what's going to help identify problems, solve those problems, really create innovative work that's going to be able to move the issues forward, develop great solutions to complex problems to impact the communities that we care about. So just really quickly, and this is not a shameless plug either, I'll say that now, just want to show you a few of ways that some of these learnings that I've had have connected to some of my own work. I wasn't always very outward about my artist background, but at some point in time I identified myself and started working with team members who told me that this is fundable work that you're doing and you're passionate about it, so why aren't you trying to push a research agenda in an area that is personally relevant to you? So I started trying to do that, and I was able to get a really nice grant from the Department of Health to study West African drumming and how this impacted depression, anxiety, and mild cognitive improvements for older adults with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. I also found out that there are some pretty high-ranking journals that want to publish that kind of work and even could be published in some book chapters. I began to think about more broadly how my art might be able to be used to develop interventions that could solve problems that I was interested in, like stigma in communities of color. And with the partnership of a community-based organization, we were able to develop This Is My Brave, Stories from the Black Community, which was an intervention that used storytelling through the arts to help shine a light on the stories of Black and brown individuals who were living with mental health conditions in an effort to reduce stigma in the Black community. I then began to expand my teams and my collaborations, finding places where I had weakness, bringing in other disciplines, and we were able to move some even bigger projects. Currently, I'm running a large trial where we are testing the impact of a community-based care transitions intervention to reduce potentially avoidable rehospitalizations for older African Americans and Latino Hispanic patients who are living with chronic disease and a co-occurring mental illness. I then expanded my team even further, and I'm a co-investigator on a multi-site R01 from the National Institute of Mental Health, where we are training community members to deliver brief behavioral interventions for depression, to build capital in communities so that they can work together to begin solving some of their own problems. And this is a collaboration with Cornell and the University of Washington. And then lastly, I had an opportunity further expanding my team to partner on a pretty big award from the American Education Service and Art Schools Network, where we actually had teaching artists as co-investigators on this grant, working together to integrate cultural arts into K-12 education as a strategy for dismantling the drivers of racial inequities. So this is some of the work that I'm excited about. If you're excited about any of these projects, please come and talk to me. Because in my new role here as the director of the Center on Race and Social Problems, I really want to be able to continue building these kinds of teams and collaborations here. And at CRISP, we have an exciting thing that we're working on right now, and I see my esteemed associate director, Ron, up here, who has been working on this. This is, and I don't know if Femi is in the room. No, all right, but we're working on this really exciting web-based interface to enhance our ability to collaborate with one another. Sometimes we find, and this is why I think this conference is so amazing, there are so many of us doing exciting work, but we don't know what each other is doing. We don't know the best way to work with one another or to find investigators or to begin collaborations. So this would be a platform that would allow us to connect scholars of color and those who are interested in equity research with the goal really of facilitating awareness of what's happening on campus, who's doing what are the different areas of expertise, so that we can begin working together to develop programs, projects, publications, etc. We have to begin to work together and lift each other up and support one another. we're going to face resistance along this path. Not everyone understands how important the work is that we're doing. And we're going to have challenges. But we know that it is the work that we are doing that is leading to real impact and improving the lives of the communities that we care about and the individuals within those communities. So we have to do that work. The University of Pittsburgh is really in a position to be an epicenter of race-based research in the country. And that's going to happen because of the people that are in this room right now. So we have to take advantage of that opportunity, but we can't do it alone. We have to work together. So the time is now. I look around this room, and I'm incredibly excited because there is a wealth of knowledge, expertise, and innovation and opportunities here in this space. So let's capitalize on that today. Let's find unique synergies and find ways that we can work together to push issues forward. I'm going to leave you with something that has resonated with me for a really long time. It is not mine, so I'm going to give my professor credit for this, and I've heard it a few other places now, so I don't know if she took it from somebody else herself. But I love it. It makes a lot of sense to me, so I want to end with it. What we can accomplish on our own is something small, a small idea that can fit in the palm of our hand that we can hold on to tightly. But that idea is likely insignificant, not likely to make a big impact. To hold on to an idea that's going to make a big impact, we have to open our arms in order to be able to hold it. But even then, we have to invite other people over with their arms wide open in order to push that idea forward. Holding on tightly means having complete control, and some of us like to have complete control. But opening our arms means releasing that control in favor of harnessing the power of collaboration so that we can move big issues forward together to make a real impact in our communities. So I ask and invite you all today to open your arms wide, find some people who want to move big things forward with you, and let's make a change that's going to benefit our community. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Kaya. We're going to give you 5 minutes. Take a break, talk to somebody, run to the restroom, and come back and sit down. All right? We'll see you in 5.